GMs for Hire.
Welcome back to another episode of GMs for Hire. I'm Jamil. With me is RJ. You know as well as we know at this point, if you're still rocking with us, we're talking about college football. If you've been through us through this whole preseason, leading up to the season, we've broken down all the different conferences. We've talked about the Power Fives, the G5s, the independents. But in this video, we are going to go in and give our official predictions for how we see bowl season going. And we're talking about the playoffs and the New Year's Six bowl games. RJ, how are you feeling about this tonight?
Man, I'm loving it. I think we're going to get some new teams into the New Year's Six. I think we're going to see a new team in the playoff. I'm excited for this season. There's a lot of uncertainty with the big teams at the top. You know, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State replacing a lot. This is going to be a fun year. I think. I don't think we're going to see a boring chalk year in 2021.
You know, I think that's what a lot of people are hoping for, that things are different this season. You know, I think a lot of people are hoping for, since Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson are all breaking in newer quarterbacks, that one of them trips and falls and doesn't get in. You know, I think a lot of people are just hoping for a little more parity this season. So with that, you know, let's just get right on into it. We're going to talk about some of these New Year's Six bowl games. And this season, the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl are the playoff games. So to choose from, we have the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, and the Peach Bowl. Obviously, traditionally, the Rose Bowl, Pac-12 versus Big Ten. For me, it's going to come down to a couple of different teams from each conference. Obviously, the Big Ten, everybody's going to look at the big dogs with Ohio State and Wisconsin. For me, getting into the Rose Bowl is going to be the Wisconsin Badgers. I don't think they're going to have enough to defeat Ohio State this season when it matters the most. I think they're going to bang the second best team. I think they're going to have a good season on offense. You know, last season we saw them doing ridiculous numbers until COVID struck and a lot of things changed with this team. But Mertz had this team humming. I think he's going to be able to get back to that and lead them to a high finish in the Big Ten, getting them back to where they seem to be almost every other season in the Rose Bowl. And in the Pac-12, it's obviously going to come down for me between three teams, maybe four. We talked about USC being okay. We talked about Washington, Oregon, and maybe Arizona State surprising. For me, coming out of the Pac-12, it's going to be the Washington Huskies. I like their mix of offense and defense with Jimmy Lake over there at the helm over there in Washington. I think they're going to get to the Rose Bowl. I think it's going to be Wisconsin versus Washington.
All right. So the Wisconsin pick, absolutely. This is a team that year in, year out, they are just solid. They are just meat and potatoes, Big Ten football. They're going to run the ball. Their offensive line is going to be great. Their quarterback's going to be good enough, and their defense is going to be great. But they just can't get over that Ohio State hump. As much as we want them to, as much as we want more parity, Wisconsin just has an Ohio State problem. A lot of teams in that conference have an Ohio State problem. But Wisconsin just can't get over that hump. But a consolation prize is they end up in the granddaddy of them all. I do think Wisconsin will be the second best team in the Big Ten, and I think that's going to be good enough to get them into the Rose Bowl this year. As far as who they're going to go against, the Pac-12 is chaos. The Pac-12 is a circus right now. I think Oregon is going to be a very good football team. I think Washington can be a very good football team. I think Arizona State can be a good football team, and they might have the best quarterback in the conference. And because of that, I think Oregon and Arizona State end up in the Pac-12 championship. Oregon, if they win that game, could be in the playoff. But because the Pac-12 is a circus, Arizona State is going to beat Oregon in the Pac-12 championship, cost the Pac-12 a shot at the playoff, and Arizona State is going to be going straight to Pasadena. So my Rose Bowl is going to be Wisconsin versus Arizona State.
That would be a very, very good matchup. I think that'd be a very, very fun one. And that would be so Pac-12 for them to get so close back to getting to the playoffs like Washington did in 2017. But those Sun Devils, right before the sanctions are going to hit, pull it off and then get to a Rose Bowl from Edwards and company, and they're able to shock the world. That would be a fun matchup, though. Little Daniels versus Mertz, Herm Edwards back in the limelight. That'd be a fun one. I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. Moving from the West Coast to the East Coast, we're going to jump to the Sugar Bowl, where the SEC normally holds the right to play in this game. And I think we're going to see the Dogs of Georgia play in this game. You know, in recent life, some injury news coming out of Athens. I think that's going to hurt them in the beginning of the season. And hopefully those guys come back sooner rather than later. But if they were to miss more games long-term, I think the Dogs could be in trouble of missing out on the playoffs. And I have them just outside the playoffs right now with the way things are shaking out. That's why I have them playing in the Sugar Bowl. And I have them matching up against the Iowa State Cyclones. This Iowa State team that has the most talent they've ever had on a football field at one time. They're going to be very, very good. But the problem is they're going to run into a team that's also very, very good, especially on the offensive side of the ball in Oklahoma. And I don't think they're going to have the juice to knock them off in the conference title game. I think it's going to put them back in the New Year's Six. And it's giving them a great matchup versus SEC Power in Georgia. I think this would be a very, very good football game.
Yep, I agree with everything you said about Iowa State. I mentioned how Wisconsin is a very good team with an Ohio State problem. Iowa State, a very good team, great quarterback, great head coach, great running back. This is probably the most talented Iowa State team of all time, but they have a school in Norman that they just can't quite get past in the championship game. When they play in the regular season, they can beat them. But when they meet in the Big 12 championship in Jerry World, something's different. And Iowa State can't quite get past Oklahoma. So I do think Iowa State will find themselves in the Sugar Bowl, but I don't think they're going to play Georgia. I think they are going to have a prime opportunity. I think Matt Campbell is going to throw his name into the NFL and major college football circles because Iowa State is going to go against Alabama in the Sugar Bowl with a prime opportunity to just send that program straight through the stratosphere. This Alabama team is going to be breaking in so much new pieces. The new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, new running back, new receivers. Look, it's Nick Saban. They're going to have a great defense. This team isn't going to go 8-4, but I do think Alabama has so much to replace. I don't think this team will make the playoff this year. I think they'll lose a regular season game. I'm not sure against who yet. I think that trip to Florida in the swamp, I think that's tricky. I think Texas A&M is tricky. LSU is always going to play them close, or it could be an upset from one of those two Mississippi schools that can score a lot of points. So I do think Alabama will lose a regular season game, and then I think they go on and lose the SEC championship to Georgia, and that puts Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, just missing out on the playoff.
That would be huge for Iowa State if they were to draw, either Georgia or Bama, but especially in your scenario against Bama. If Matt Campbell's able to knock off Nick Saban, a whole bunch of NFL owners are coming to knock on his door and give him a blank check to come over. And a lot of college programs are going to come over and say, whoa, man, we love what you did here, but come on over here, man. We got a little bit more money, a little bit more resources. Let me talk to you nice, and we'll see what happens with Matt Campbell. But that would for sure put him on the map especially if a win over Alabama. Even a close game would, but a win, that'd be crazy for himself and for Ames. That'd be huge for the program of Iowa State. Would definitely be arguably their biggest win ever. For upset Iowa State, who they always seem to get someone. So that would definitely be one to talk about. But continuing our bowl games, let's go on over to the Peach Bowl, where a couple at-larges could be up for grabs. And I have your North Carolina Tar Heels just missing out on a playoff opportunity, but I have them landing on their feet in a New Year's Six for the second year in a row. It will not be the Orange Bowl, but they'll still play for a fruit. They'll play in the Peach Bowl, where I have them going against, maybe surprise to some, the Florida Gators. I am a believer in this offense still, whether it's Emory Jones or Anthony Richardson running the offense, because I think Dan Mullen is such a good coach that he's still going to get the most out of this offense. And I just don't see how this defense can be as bad as it was last season. I just don't. As far as North Carolina, I think they're still great. I think Sam Howell's great, but I need to see it all come together. I need to see them play with this new offense, and I need to see them beat Clemson, because I think they will get past Miami in a very, very close game right now. That's my prediction. But I think at the end, Clemson, once they get humming, once DJ gets everything going, they will be really, really tough to stop, and they will narrowly beat out North Carolina in the conference championship game, thus giving us Florida versus North Carolina. I think it would be a great game. I know you will be there if this were to happen. If they weren't to make the playoffs, you would be in attendance rooting on your Tar Heels, and heck, maybe I'll be right there next to you, because this would be a great football game.
Yeah, absolutely. If they're going to play anywhere close to the South, I'll definitely be there. Of course, I would rather see them in the playoff, but if they're in the Peach Bowl, I'll absolutely be there. When I moved to Florida at 5 years old, You got to pick a team, either Florida State or Florida. You got to be a fan of one. And I was always a Gator fan. I picked the Gators. So that'd be kind of funny. My two, I guess, favorite teams, the Tar Heels and Gators going against each other in the New Year's Six. That'd be fun to watch. I agree with you on everything you said about Florida. I think this team is going to surprise a lot of people. I know they lost Trask, they lost Tony, they lost Pitts, they lost all these guys, and everybody wants them to take a step back, and everybody's expecting them to take a step back. I don't see it. When you look at Florida's schedule, you cannot find me more than 2 losses on that schedule. I do think they lose to Georgia, and I think they probably lose to Alabama, and I think those would be their 2 losses. If they could somehow upset one of those 2 teams, though, watch out, because there's not another loss on that schedule this year for the Gators. So I think the Gators are going to have a great year. I see them about 10-2, something like that. I can't see them not winning 10 games this year, unless Emory Jones just ends up being trash, which I don't see that either. So I agree with Florida ending up in the Peach Bowl, but this is where I have our group of 5 representative landing. I think there's a certain team in the state of Florida that's been running their mouth a lot, especially when it comes to the Gators. Are they scared to play us? Do they want us to come to their house? Do they want to come to our house? Who's it going to, who's going to fold first? Are we going to have to go there? Are you going to come here? I think UCF, flying under the radar, is going to beat Cincinnati. They're going to be the highest ranked group of 5 champion. They won't be undefeated. I do think Coastal Carolina will be undefeated, but this is where UCF, playing in a tougher conference, I think they're going to get the edge over Coastal, and I think UCF ends up in the Peach Bowl, a place that they love. Last time they played there, they beat Auburn. UCF in the Peach Bowl against the Florida Gators, and the entire state of Florida is going to be taking over Atlanta, because that would be absolutely electric. UCF back in the Peach Bowl, finally getting their shot at the Florida Gators. Florida wanting to shut UCF up and make sure everyone realizes, hey, we're still the top dog in the state of Florida. That would be, again, appointment television. That'd be a great game. We finally would get to see UCF in Florida.
RJ, if this were to happen, you have made multiple people's years if this were to happen, because I know every single UCF fan is sick and tired of the Gators because they want to play them so bad. I know every Florida fan is sick and tired of UCF because they're tired of hearing them talk. Talk about claiming national championships. We're the best team in the state, Big Four. Everybody, I know Florida fans, Florida State fans, and Miami fans are be like, all right, we got to hold up. Y'all are talking crazy. And they probably want Florida maybe to win that game. But every group of 5 fan and UCF fan, anybody little wants the UCF to beat them. And that game would be absolutely crazy. The whole state of Florida would be in attendance that game. And that game would be wild. And you would have just made a lot of people's years if that game were to happen.
Well, that's another thing that people don't necessarily talk about enough. These matchups, the New Year's Six matchups are set by the playoff committee. So they are going to work with ESPN, since ESPN owns every bowl game. They're going to work with ESPN, and they are going to put the best matchups on the field possible. And
bowl games always love narratives too. Like that's the best time to have
UCF versus Florida. Oh my God, it writes itself.
That's a money maker, a television maker. You're like you mentioned, it writes itself. It fits every box, every criteria you could ask for. And like you mentioned, they're going to work with ESPN and all that. Bowl games, we've seen plenty of narrative bowl games, and this would just be another one. This would be absolutely gigantic. But to keep it moving on with these bowl games, we're going to go back out west to hit the Fiesta Bowl. And for me, my matchup is going to be featuring the team that I think is going under the radar on the SEC and the Texas A&M Aggies. I personally think this team has the best chance to knock off Alabama right now with the way Georgia is getting hurt and if these guys can get healthy or not. If they can get the quarterback production out of Hayes King, I think Texas A&M has the best chance to knock off Alabama. They finally have their chance. They get them at home. They get them right where they want them early enough in the season where Alabama might still be figuring things out. Like you mentioned, they have a lot of newness. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think this A&M team is strong in the secondary. They're strong on the D end. I think they're strong in a lot of places. It's just they have a freshman quarterback. And how much can he do with a freshman quarterback? Will he be on the hot seat early if he's not producing enough? that's the question. That's the question with this Aggies team. And I'm very, very behind them. And I think they're right there on the cusp of the playoffs. That's why I have them sitting in this Fiesta Bowl, because I just can't, in my heart of hearts, pick them to beat Alabama at this moment. We'll see how things are looking when they play them. Maybe I'll change my mind. But for now, I have the Aggies sitting here and playing them. I have my group of 5 representative. As much as I want Coastal Carolina to make the group of 5, I think me and you, we both want them to make it the most to play in this New Year's 6. I have this team narrowly knocking out UCF when it matters. I think the Cincinnati Bearcats will play the Texas A&M Aggies. I think Cincinnati will find their way back into the group of 5 for the second year in a row into the New Year's 6 bowls. Excuse me, I said that backwards. I think they'll find their way back into the New Year's 6. I think they just have such a strong team led by a lot of leaders that they're narrowly going to beat UCF. I actually can see them splitting, and just whoever wins the last matchup in the conference championship goes to this bowl game. For me, it's Cincinnati right now against the Aggies.
Well, we have agreed on one team for each of these bowl games. And I wasn't really sure about Texas A&M. They are breaking in a new quarterback. We got to see it. I did mention in our SEC video, though, I think Kellen Mond was holding this program back. I think A&M has a ton of talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They've got a bunch of skill position guys on offense. I think if they got a better quarterback, this team can reach new heights. But I had to look at their schedule, and I did not realize Texas A&M might have the easiest schedule in the SEC other than the game against Alabama. They don't play another ranked opponent except for LSU, which, their preseason ranking might be a little generous. Texas A&M, their schedule is very favorable. Texas A&M should absolutely be in the New Year's 6 because, again, I can't see them losing more than 2 games. I can't see them losing more than 1, honestly. But I'm not going to put them too high. They'll find another game to lose. But Texas A&M, I do have them going out west to play in the Fiesta Bowl. Not too far west for them. But I do think they are going to end up out there. Who are they going to play? They're going to play a team that they've actually played in the regular season a couple times in the last few years. And that would be the Clemson Tigers. I think Clemson finally misses the playoff. I think there's finally a challenger in the ACC that can knock them off. Now, Clemson, I think they lose week 1 against Georgia. I don't think they lose again until the ACC championship. And I think, 11-2 Clemson team is still going to be good enough to end up in the New Year's 6. And I think we're going to get Clemson and Texas A&M playing in the Fiesta Bowl.
That'd be another really good game if you ask me. I think me and you, we've had, great minds think alike. We put one team in each one, and I think even though we've had different second teams, I think every matchup we put together has been really, really good, and I think it's going to be really good for ratings. We mentioned just now narratives. You mentioned these 2 teams have played in the past a couple times, and why not run it back again? SEC, ACC, Texas, South Carolina, but really they recruit the whole South, so really it's Texas versus the South, and fans would come and be a good atmosphere. I think that'd be another really good football game. We'll see what happens with Clemson. Obviously, me and you have differed on that with your Tar Heels, which we're going to get into here in a little bit, but that'd be another really good matchup. And I'd be excited to see all these New Year's 6 games that me and you just mentioned. I know me and you, we just talked about it before we went on, that we were really this close but in our heart of hearts, we couldn't do it. So pulling the trigger and putting 2 G5 teams in. But at the end of the day, we both felt like that wasn't probably going to happen.
Yeah, as I would love, we talked about it before we did this video, I would absolutely love to get a Peach Bowl of UCF versus Coastal Carolina or Cincinnati versus Coastal Carolina. If Coastal can go undefeated and you've got either UCF or Cincinnati sitting there undefeated or with 1 loss, let's put both of them in the New Year's 6. Let's see them play each other, and let's see who the best group of 5 team is.
Mm-hmm. A Liberty UCF game would be fire too. I think that'd be a really, really good one. Gabriel versus Willis, that'd be another really, really good one. But if we can't get in this setting, maybe they can play somehow, some way, somewhere else down the line, because I think some of those G5 matches would be really, really good. But moving out of the G5, moving out of the New Year's 6, let's talk about what everybody came here to talk about: the playoffs, where the money is made, the top 4 teams. Let's start off in the South with the Orange Bowl. For me, I have Ohio State versus Oklahoma. I think these two teams are going to be very, very good this season. I think Ohio State breaking in a new quarterback. In the beginning, it might be rough. First game at Minnesota at night. They're wearing all black. They just came out with those new jerseys today. That could be a tough atmosphere, especially for a quarterback that hasn't played yet. They could be on opposite alert there. They're obviously breaking in some new stuff, but they have so much talent outside of them. I think they're going to be able to find a way to work through the season and to get back to the playoffs and run the Big Ten for what seems like the past decade or so. They've been running it even more than that. Ryan Day came in, he hasn't missed a beat. They've just been playing really, really good football. And they're going to continue to do that. As far as the Oklahoma Sooners, for me, this is one of a couple of teams in the nation where it's put up or shut up. You got to do it. A couple other teams are down. You're on the rise. You got to seize the opportunity, and you got to go to the playoffs, and you got to finally win a playoff game. You have all the talent in the world on offense. You have one of the best young masterminds as the coach in Lincoln Riley. You have the potential number 1 overall pick in Spencer Rattler. You have 2 great running backs, plethora of receivers. Your defense is finally good with Alex Grinch, who will probably leave after the season. You have to get to the playoffs, and you have to win the season.
Absolutely. For my Orange Bowl, I'm going to have the number 1 team versus the number 4 team. I have Georgia ranked number 1 in the country, choosing the Orange Bowl, stay in the South. Don't want to go to Jerry World. I'm going to have Georgia take on the number 4 Ohio State Buckeyes. Again, we have 1 team in each game here that we agree on. I think Georgia is just going to be dominant this year. I know people have questions. I get it. You don't want to bet on Georgia because they always let you down. Georgia always finds a way to screw it up. Georgia has the most talent in the country outside of Alabama and Clemson, and they just can't get it done. Well, this year is going to be different. I don't know why it's going to be different. Georgia fans will tell you every year, oh, this is different. This is different. I do think this year will be different. I think they have a legitimate quarterback with JT Daniels. I think this team is loaded at every position. I think this is the year Georgia goes out there and they look like a dominant football team. Are they undefeated? I don't know. I do think they could trip up and lose a game, but I still would have them ranked number 1 as a 1-loss SEC champion. No one's going to be put above that. At number 4, I have Ohio State just getting into the playoff. Now, as much as I want Ohio State to miss the playoff because I want more parity, I don't think there's anybody in the Big Ten that can actually beat this team. This team, Ohio State, isn't Big Ten good. They are nationally good. Like Wisconsin, Penn State, Iowa, those are good Big Ten teams. Like you don't just go waltz into Camp Randall or Kinnick Stadium and expect to win on Saturday night. But Ohio State, they can play anybody, anywhere, at any time and probably win. So they're not just Big Ten good. They're really, really good. So I would love to see, again, Ohio State's going to be breaking in a new quarterback. We got to see Ryan Day develop another guy before I anoint him as, the savior at Ohio State. I want to see him with another quarterback. Justin Fields was once in a lifetime for them. So let's see that. I do think Ohio State will find their way into the playoff. I think they go down to the Orange Bowl and they play the Georgia Bulldogs.
All right, I can rock with that. Geographically, probably Oklahoma would probably play in this Cotton Bowl, depending on how things went out. But I didn't do it that way like you did. I folded there. But for my Cotton Bowl, I have the matchup everybody loves, so near and dear to their heart. The Clemson Tigers versus the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's the gift that keeps giving. It's what we're going to get every year. And it doesn't stop here. For me, let's talk about Alabama first. Obviously, we've mentioned before and today, and with a lot of everybody else talking about, it's a lot of newness. A lot is new, and I'm not going to deny that. They have a lot of new players on offense at almost every skill position. They have a new offensive coordinator coming in. They have a new quarterback. But at the end of the day, I have never seen, or very rarely ever seen, a Nick Saban team not be prepared. And I think it's going to be a little tough in the beginning, especially in the Miami game. Miami's going to play them close, but I think Alabama will get the win there. And I think as the season progresses, they're going to start churning on offense. I think this defense is still going to be very, very good. And I think it's going to carry them in the beginning. And as the season goes on, they're going to have a couple of tough games this season, like an Ole Miss, like a Miami. They're going to play them really, really tough. At the end of the day, I think this Alabama team will get clicking, and they will eventually win the SEC. I think Georgia's going to give them a very, very tough run. But, with these injuries that come out of Georgia early on, I'm worried about them in that first game versus Clemson. And we'll see what happens with the rest of the SEC schedule. I think they need those guys like Tyke Smith and Washington to come back and play. I hope they're only out for short term because I want to see this team at full health, because before the season started, I was super high on this team and I thought they were going to make the playoffs. But as of this day, I had them just missing out. As the season goes on, I could easily change my mind. But for now, I have Alabama locked into the SEC and the playoff. And as far as the Clemson Tigers, I think this team is going under the radar just a tad bit. This is a team that's still returning a lot of talent. We saw what DJ could do in short spurts last season. They're getting Justin Ross back. They're going to have to replace Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, that's not going to be, that's better said than done. That's going to be very, very tough. And it's not going to be easy, but I think they're going to be able to do it. I think they have the receivers in that room. It's always talented. They're going to have the running backs. They're going to combine to do what Travis Etienne did. And I think on defense, they're still stout. I think their defensive line is very, very strong. And I think they're still good in the secondary. And I know you're going to argue with me about this because I have them over your North Carolina Tar Heels. I do have your Tar Heels playing in them in the ACC championship game, and I have them narrowly falling to Clemson.
Yeah, Clemson's defensive line, that's disgusting. What they had a couple years ago with the Power Rangers, we thought could maybe not be replicated, and they might be replicating it right now. Brian Brees is one of the best players in the entire country. Clemson's defensive line is disgusting, but I obviously don't have them in the playoff because I have them playing in the Fiesta Bowl. So for my Cotton Bowl, I'm going to have the number 2 Oklahoma Sooners taking on the number 3 North Carolina Tar Heels in the playoff. I think this game right here is going to be absolutely electric. Most playoff games suck, honestly, but this game right here would be absolutely electric. And there's another game that keeps popping into my head when I think of this matchup, and it's the very first playoff game ever. And it was Oregon and Florida State. We had Marcus Mariota versus Jameis Winston. We had a guy that won the Heisman the year before versus the guy that won the Heisman that year. Neither one of these guys and Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell have won the Heisman yet, but I definitely think one of them could very well win the Heisman this year. I think they'll probably both be Heisman finalists. I think they'll probably both finish in the top 3, maybe top 5 in voting. And I think we are going to have one of the best quarterback matchups in the history of the college football playoff, the short history. But this Spencer Rattler versus Sam Howell game would be absolutely electric from the jump. You mentioned Oklahoma. They, to me, have more pressure than anybody in the entire country this year. And I know everybody thinks it should be Georgia. I know maybe Ohio State because they haven't, won a natty. To me, it's Oklahoma. This team, you mentioned, they've gone to the playoff, and when they've gone to the playoff, they've gotten smoked. Now, yeah, it sucks. They keep drawing the short end of the stick, having to play against Clemson and Deshaun, having to play against Tua and Alabama, having to play against that loaded Georgia team in the Rose Bowl, having to play against Joe Burrow and LSU. Yeah, it sucks. They keep drawing the short end of the stick. But if you think that you belong in the playoff, you got to beat these teams. And Oklahoma has not found a way to beat these big-time teams. So Oklahoma has a ton of pressure on them. They've got the quarterback. They've got basically the whole team. You mentioned Alex Grinch. This will probably be his last year as defensive coordinator because I would imagine that guy's going to be a head coach next year. Oklahoma has all the pressure. They've got to win a playoff game. North Carolina, on the other hand, if they beat Clemson in the ACC championship, anything else they do past that is just the cherry on top. Because I don't think anybody is actually expecting this team to make a playoff run. I think everybody agrees that Sam Howell is a very good quarterback. I think everybody agrees that North Carolina is going to be a good team, but they're not going to beat Clemson. Well, if they do beat Clemson, they're going to walk right into the playoff with absolutely no pressure on them. The only person that would have pressure would be Sam Howell because he wants to perform for NFL scouts. But to me, North Carolina, they can play loose. Once they get to the ACC championship game against Clemson, which I think they will, they can play loose. And I think if you have a loose North Carolina team going in against a pressure-packed Oklahoma team that knows they have to win, we're going to see magic with the 2 best quarterbacks in the country in my Cotton Bowl.
Now you broke that game down. Obviously, I had, Clemson making it over y'all, but either way, either if one of those teams play each other, that'd be huge for the quarterback battle. But in your game, North Carolina versus Oklahoma, I think that'd be a very, very great one because you have probably the number one, number two overall picks. If this happens, they will probably for sure be the number one, number two overall picks going at it against each other. You have two very, very good offenses going each other. And then, you mentioned, you guys have some good DBs over there to guard those receivers for Oklahoma. So I think the matchups would be very, very good. And this would be a very, very high scoring game. And I think it would be an action-packed game. I think this would be great for the playoffs. I think it'd be one of the best games we've gotten in the playoff era. And now that you said it, I kind of hope we see it because I think it'd be very, very good at the end of the day.
Yeah, you mentioned those UNC DBs. If you don't know who Tony Grimes is, you're going to know about him in a couple months. That guy is a freak.
Well, you heard there from RJ that he's a freak and we're going to see it. And, if we get that matchup, there'll definitely be a test to see how good they are because these Oklahoma receivers can burn and the play calling that Lincoln Riley has is very, very good. So it'd be a very big chess match piece moving game for North Carolina versus Oklahoma. But that was us breaking down our bowl games, our New Year's Six games and the playoff games. RJ, any last thoughts on these?
Man, I said I wanted parity, and I only got one new team into the playoff, but it's better than zero.
But it seems like every year it's like that. It's just one new team.
Yep, and I think we're going to get one new team again this year. I don't think we get chalk. I hope we don't get chalk because I think this season has the makings of being the best season of college football we've had since 2016.
Yeah, I definitely hope that's the case. You mentioned, we didn't necessarily get parity in the playoffs. You just added one new team, but in the other games, we have, Iowa State was in there last year, but they're not normally always in there. We had them in there. You had UCF, Cincinnati would be there for the second time. And they would only be their second time in a row making it. I had Washington. You had Arizona State. Those would both be two new teams that we haven't seen in a while. So just because it wouldn't necessarily be in the playoff doesn't mean it won't be around in all the other New Year's Six games. And here's to me hoping with you that we have a lot of parity and we have a great season this year. I know that, last season wasn't the same, with fans and the pageantry back. It should be a very, very excellent season. A lot of good teams, a lot of teams breaking in new stuff. So I agree with you. I hope we see a very exciting season with a lot of different outcomes.
Absolutely. This is the best sport in the world, and I cannot wait for it to be back.
I definitely agree with you right there. I know we're both excited. We got our first games coming up this weekend, and I know we're going to be locked in. I hope everybody else around the nation is locked in, and me and you are going to be locked in still in these videos throughout the season. We're going to come out every week. We're going to break down some upcoming weeks. We're going to talk about the past weeks. We're just going to talk about college football because we hope it's going to be a great season with some great matchups. And me and you, we're going to be back later this season. And everybody else, thank you for watching and stay tapped in with us throughout the season. Everybody have a great one.